Before we begin, thank you very much to... I was wrong, guys. I really love Titanium Megatron for joining the Patreon campaign. You can make me say it, but you can't make me mean it. You are aware of this, right? Yes, I do love Titanium Megatron. He is my favorite punching bag. I love making fun of that toy more than any hotshot I have ever encountered. But thank you very much for making me say silly things. I do appreciate the support over on Patreon. It does help the channel out a lot. So even for $1, I will say the dumb things you guys want me to start these videos with. And thank you for making me do it. So a while back, we did a video that was all about the weird names in Transformers over the years. Some of them were really weird. Some of them were very misnamed, I guess. How do I phrase that? Misplaced for the character. It didn't hit the mark for them. And some were just plain dirty. Because of course, we make innuendo out of everything. But the biggest thing I got in the comments section there was, what about the Japanese names? Like, why didn't you include these weird Japanese names? Like, okay, I didn't include them because Japanese naming sensibilities when it comes to characters like this is drastically different than the US. See, over here, you know, like, if I give you the name Yoshi, you're going to think of a green dinosaur. But if you saw, like, a person named Yoshi, that sounds really exotic. It's not a name you hear, but in Japan, it's far more common, you know? You know, someone in Japan named Sakura. You know, how many anime characters are named Sakura? You know, it'd be the equivalent of someone in America named Lily. You know, we're both named after pretty flowers. And in Japan, Lily would sound like a much more exotic name, whereas over here, yeah, like I've heard of lilies, I've known lilies, not that uncommon. And that's kind of how it works. You know, what sounds exotic to them is just going to be plain old names and words to us. So I didn't include those before. Now we're just going to talk about those. It's just going to be the weird names from Generation 1 that they stuck to these characters. And we are going with G1 only because, of course, if we extend into other fictions, Beast Wars, etc., I could get whole other videos out of that. So we're going to take our time and we're going to start where it all began. So things like, at this point, I shouldn't have to tell you that the character in front of you is Optimus Prime, but in Japan, his name is Convoy, because semi-truck. We should all know that by now. That's common knowledge. We're going to dance around to some common, some very uncommon, and some very weird. The fun part is, this list is going to be in alphabetical order, but only by the Japanese names. So if you know them, you're cheating. But play along, see how many you can guess right. And we're going to start with Cosmos. Cosmos, now, this is a weird one because the toy was never available in Japan. He was in the cartoon, obviously. He had a few prominent episodes, but the toy was a mail-away exclusive only. So, not nearly as much exposure as the rest. Japanese name? Adams. A-D-A-M-S. Adams. Supposedly, and this is like the only thing we can conclude, is that it is based on the guy who first invented the pie plate flying saucer. You know, so I guess I have to go by that. It makes some bit of sense, I guess, but like that, like Adams, it's just a very, like Samuel Adams. You know, it's a Transformer whiskey peddler. I don't know. I'm just going to repeat these names, and you're just going to marvel at how odd they are, like Blot. Now, his is confusing because the way it's pronounced and the way it's spelled are different, so there's two different interpretations. And one of them is boot. B-O-O-T, boot. But it's not spelled correctly for that. The way it's spelled is actually butt. B-U-T-T-E, butt. Now, both might be attempts to corrupt the English name Blot, because keep in mind The American stuff came first in this era of G1, and then it trickled into Japan, so they maintained a lot of the naming structures, or they modified the names to either be like single syllable names or like corruptions of the American name. That'd be a little bit more standout in Japan. Either way, butt or boot for blot. Take your pick. We'll get this one out of the way. Yes, squeeze play in Japan is known as cancer because crab guy. It's an unfortunate name, but it's also one of the strangest ones to explain. Stranger more to explain that that's actually not the name of the robot. It's the name of the 11-year-old boy piloting the robot. Someone's mom was very, very cruel. So we're going to get off of that name very quickly, and we're going to move right into Cup. Cup's already an odd name. We talked about Cup being an odd name before, and literally everybody was jumping on me. Cup is named after pickup truck. I know! It's still stupid! It still sounds stupid! You took what he turned into, and you just cut off the first syllable. Cup. It's still dumb. But the Japanese name also weird because the name is Cha, CH up, CH long A. Spelled CHER. We thought it was Char for a long time. We have since corrected this. Because they did the exact same thing, but instead of just taking his alt mode and just chopping off the first syllable, they did it to his role because it's an abbreviation of teacher. So, chur, or if you're saying it with a Japanese accent, Chi-cha. So his name is Cha. Weird one, right? Really weird one. But yeah, like, it's interesting that they came up with the same naming convention. Just take the second syllable of what they are. But they did it with completely different, like, meanings. And I think most toys for Cup just call him Cup in Japan now. I think they've ditched the cha. They got the cha out. Some of my favorite ones were the train team from the Japanese Micromasters. Oh my god, there's so many weird names on this one. So, this one, Digo. For the longest time, we thought it was Diego, named after Sandiego. But no. Digo is how it is actually spelled. It's just a funny name to say, isn't it? Digo. And don't worry, we'll come back to this. This one's more interesting. So a lot of the train bots in Japan had weird names. But this one, Desire. The robot is named Desire. You know, I don't know why. I genuinely don't. I don't question. If you like, I assume like, it's an exotic dancer name is what it is. I don't know. Some joke about poles and monorails. You make the joke yourself. Okay, here's an amusing one. So we know this as G1 Camshaft, right? Okay, so Japan used that name too, but not for this character. No, you are currently looking at Japanese G1 Downshift. And the character we called Downshift, his name was Camshaft. Important to note that the G1 toy we called Camshaft was using a model of car that did not feature a camshaft. So Japan switching the names on us actually makes a lot more sense. But it's one of those funny, like, it's almost like the Street Fighter thing where, like, this name doesn't work on this character anymore. Let's just flop them around. It was that weird kind of situation. Where it's like, simple solution, though. Give them credit for that. So, yeah. Those two names will confuse you a whole lot. Huffer. Huffer's already a weird name. Because of certain unsavorable activities, that name is already really weird. That name did not age well. However, Japanese name, Drag. Literally, if this character ever attained royalty, he really could be a drag queen. I genuinely. It's a weird name, but considering that drag literally means to pull, and he is a like little like hauling truck, okay, I get it. I know why his name is drag. All right, fine. I was hoping the Constructicons would give me a whole lot, because the combined mode of Devastator is called Devastor in Japan, or Devastar, depending on how you Romanize it. But honestly, most of them kept the Japanese names. Most of them, most of them kept the American names. So like Mixmaster, Bone Crusher, Long Haul, they're all the same. So which is kind of boring. And then Hook happened, and apparently Hook is just a boring name in Japan or something, because that's the one they felt they needed to change. The name they changed it to, Glenn. Glen, Glenn. His name is just Glenn. Like your accountant. I assume like Glenn is in like the field, like maybe. I don't know. Every now and then they do just have those like weird like land and sea formation names. There's a sea bot named Gulf. A Seacon named Gulf. Like, okay, fine. I get it. It's a water thing. That makes sense. I don't know why Glenn. I don't know why everyone else is like, I'm Scrapper. I'm Bone Crusher. I'm Glenn. It's the best. It's the best. I don't know why. Braun. You wouldn't think this one would be difficult, right? Okay. So this might be a corruption of the name. This might be based on the shape of his head. His name is Gong. Gong, Gong. Like big mallet. Bang. Kind of gong. I'm going to presume the name may be based on the shape of his head. I don't know. Or this might be a corruption of the name, because Braun would be harder to pronounce in Japanese. It's just a really odd one. A lot of the mini-bots have like really odd naming conventions in Japan. Like they do that thing where like they'll just take one syllable of the American name. They don't have Bumblebee, they have Bumble. They don't have Cliff Jumper, they have Cliff. And those are the ones now, because you probably saw the Missing Link versions, but like those are not the only ones. They have Charger instead of Wind Charger, So Gong kind of stood out to me. This one did too. The Protectobots, again, mostly stayed the same, but Blaze was a little bit weird, and similar to Gong, it feels like it's a more like a corruption of the American name, and just comes as a result of just how the letters work in Japanese as opposed to English. His name is Graze. Like what the cows do in the field, graze. Now, if he was a melee fighter, I could kind of see that as like, some semblance of a name. Graze could be what he does with his helicopter blades. He just grazes the enemy. I don't know. It's more the name of a transformer lawnmower than it is a helicopter, if we're being real here. But again, I think it's more just like it's a corruption of the name Blades. Most likely. How about Grotusque? The monster bots had funny ones. Double Cross is still Double Cross, right? Okay, that was fine. And then they did the same. They did a similar thing, but for like Repugnus, they just cut off a syllable and just left it Repug. Okay, now we're doing the opposite thing. We're only taking one syllable still, but we're leaving two behind now. And this one's similar. His name is Groats, and I love that. I love the name. It's like Groats. I mean, it's a shortening, but it's also a corruption at the same time, so it just sounds very odd. It's like, it's almost charming odd. Groats. I left one in here that I meant to make an early example, but alphabetical order. So this one is obvious. Like, this is a commonly known one. Ravage. I include this because just last week here at the toy shop, I had people like talking about G1 Ravage and like not like calling him a dog. You know, like, oh no, he's like a panther. I get it because black color, right? Panther. No, Jaguar. Japanese name is Jaguar. Pretty blunt names for things out of Soundwave's cassettes. You know, obviously like Laserbeak is called Condor. If you ever wondered what animals they're supposed to be, Jaguar and Condor. Makes it pretty easy. Okay, so, yeah, we're getting toward the end of the video here. You'd think, since we're only up to the J's, you'd think that there'd be a lot to go, but frankly, a lot of Japanese names avoid the latter half of the alphabet. I don't have too many more here, but we can talk about some of the oddball Micromasters. We're back to the Train Team. Who remembers this name? Who remembers this name? It's Joe. J-O-E, Joe. Which is a normal name. Just absolutely normal name, Joe. But again, very normal name in America. Joe, not really a big name in Japan. And this was long before JoJo made that a little bit more popular. So don't start thinking that. This is not a reference. Don't play that way. His teammate didn't fare much better. His name is Leaf. L-E-A-F, Leaf, like the kind that falls off a tree. I don't know why. I genuinely don't know why. Some of these are genuine, like, kind of clever corruptions or like, inspired by cities and things, you know, like, one is called Windy, and it's kind of based on, like, the windy city of Chicago. So, like, major cities where trains are a common thing. But, no, I don't know where Leaf comes from. Unless, like, Montreal, Canada, that's a stretch. That's a stretch. Yeah, I don't know Leaf. Don't know where Leaf comes from. How about this one? To be fair, I don't remember the American name offhand, which is unfortunate because the Japanese name just takes over so much in my brain now. This is Legs. And yes, he knows how to use them. It's a weird one to call Legs considering like his legs do not look transformed. Those are usually like what you see on the back of the legs. In fact, it looks like he has half legs. Odd choice here. Is that mistransformed? Is the photo mistransformed? Because like everything about this, I'm looking at the shape of the rear of the vehicle. Everything about that says that waist needs to rotate around in order to actually form the legs. If that's how it actually transforms, that's an unfortunate robot. That's like the kind of thing a knockoff does. How about Searchlight? Searchlight again. Fine. The name's fine. A lot of throttle bots kind of kept their names. And this one is close. It's Looklight. Instead of Searchlight, it's Looklight, which sounds like a mistranslation, right? I mean, it sounds like the name was explained to them and they went like search, look. It has the same definition technically, so I could see where that would get mixed up in translation. So, fair game to you. One more train bot for the road here. One more from Team Train. This is actually the repaint. So this is the repaint of it. So I'm technically cheating. I can't remember. This one is like a repaint of the existing one. I think this is like a repaint from before it came to Universe. I think this is like the second release in Japanese G1. I don't know. The wiki gets a little bit muddy on these. But point being, the original version was named Digo. This one is named Sandigo. So we're being even more overt with the reference now. It just amuses me that he kept the name through the repainting process, because otherwise the two are not the same character. You know, Sandigo should be Digo if he got the Matrix of Leadership, right? No, they're just completely different characters. Here's another one that a lot of people probably know already. Springer in America, but in Japan, past tense, sprang. You know, it sounds like it's going for Springer, but you threw in a southern accent for some reason. What's his name? His name's Sprang. We'll jump back to a combiner. One last one. I guess if I did Blades, Grays. It's it's only fair to do the helicopter combiner for the Decepticons. We'll do Vortex, which is again a corruption, and an oddly named Vorter. Vorter. It sounds German. Vorter. I don't know why. Like, genuinely, I try my best to try and come up with, like, some kind of concept for, like, why the names get changed. Like, is it a mistranslation? Is it redone to make it easier to pronounce in Japanese? Is it a, different interpretation of, like, how the name is, meant to mean? I genuinely don't know sometimes. I genuinely don't know Vorter. That one just completely throws me off. Who we got? We only got a couple left here. So I talked about mini-bots and how, like, the big mini-bot thing was just kind of like cutting off half of the name and leaving a single syllable. And Swerve already is one syllable. So what is there to cut off? Well, one letter. His Japanese name is Werve. No S, just Werve. And I don't know, and again, I don't know why. I genuinely do not know why. I know the SW sound is kind of unique to English. Like, I know that's probably not going to translate well in Japanese. But, Werve. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It sounds like a Star Wars character. Werve. And we're going to finish off with the one I would not want to be called my entire life. So the thing they did with the mini-bots, they did with the headmasters in Japan as well. Some of them anyway. Like Skull Cruncher got abbreviated to Skull. Okay. That's edgelord of you, but fine. You have that. They also had, oddly enough, Weirdwolf got to keep his name. Weirdwolf was fine. But Skull Cruncher, they had to abbreviate to Skull. And they decided to abbreviate Mind Wipe as well. So, yeah, Mind wouldn't be a bad name for just like a Japanese Decepticon, right? His name is Wipe. How'd you like to go through life with everyone calling you Wipe? I would not have survived middle school. I would have been locked in a locker for months at a time. But I cannot get more unfortunate than Wipe. So we got to end it here now. But that's my list for just G1 names. Just odd G1 names. Which in Japan, I'm sure, sound weird and exotic. But over here, he is like, yeah, his name's Joe. But again, this is only the G1. We've got Beast Wars, we've got the Unicron trilogy, we have so much else we could do with this, and eventually we'll get to that too. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Hope you had a little bit of fun with this odd educational day here at the channel. But I thank you for it, and of course, I will see you next time.
Analysis complete. Adapting translators to local language.
Are you out there?